Welcome to a deep dive into, well, a personal finance classic, I guess you could say. We're diving into Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez.
Hmm.
And I know what you might be thinking, another personal finance book. But trust me on this one. This one's different.
Yeah.
It's not about, that whole hustle harder thing or playing the stock market like some kind of pro. This one's about something, well, I think a lot deeper, understanding the true cost of what you're spending.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't just mean in dollars, but, in the hours of your life that you have to trade to earn those dollars.
Right.
Like every time you take out your wallet, you're making a trade, your precious time and energy for something else.
Yeah, and that's what I think makes this book so powerful. Even after all these years, it's incredible how it just changes your whole view, your whole relationship with money. Like you said, that impulse buy, it's not just a splurge. It represents the hours of your life that you spent working, maybe at a job you don't even like, hours you could have spent with family and friends, or working on your passions.
Okay, so let's unpack this whole money as life energy thing. What kind of impact can this have on someone?
Oh, it can be huge, like really profound. Imagine you realize that new phone you're not even really using represents a whole week of your life, a week you spent at a job you hate. Or those daily coffees, what do those add up to? Like a month-long vacation? It makes you think twice.
It really makes you question your priorities.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's shining a light on those little purchases. They seem small on their own, but they add up and they just drain our life energy without much to show for it. So how does this book, Your Money or Your Life, help us break out of that cycle?
Well, mindful spending is a big part of it. The book really encourages you to keep track of every dollar you spend. Like really track it, and then think about how much time and energy went into making that money. It's eye-opening.
It's like holding up a mirror to how we spend, right?
Exactly.
Forcing us to ask, is this thing actually adding anything to my life?
Right.
But your money or your life goes beyond just being careful about how you spend, right?
Oh, absolutely. It challenges this whole idea of what wealth even is. Robin and Dominguez, they say true wealth isn't about having a ton of stuff or money in the bank. It's about freedom. Freedom to design a life that's, true to your values, your passions.
It's about having the freedom to do work that you find fulfilling, even if it means maybe doing something a little unconventional, going against the grain a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's about aligning your career, your work with your values, even if it means you're stepping off that beaten path and, doing your own thing, which can be kind of scary, but the book gives you ways to actually do it, strategies.
And one of the most impactful things, I think, is this idea of the crossover point. I have to admit, when I first read about this, it was incredibly motivating. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So imagine you reach a point where the money you're making from investments is more than your monthly expenses. Like you're making more from your investments than you spend each month. That's the crossover point, the moment you're financially independent. It's like you're at the top of a mountain and work is, well, optional. You don't have to do it.
Yeah, it's like you have the freedom to choose how you want to spend your time and your energy, which is really powerful. But how do we actually reach this crossover point?
That's where the rubber meets the road, right? Yeah. The book gives you specific things you can do, specific strategies to speed up your journey to financial independence.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with getting clear on your finances, where you are now, and then, making choices about your spending that match up with what's important to you.
So it's not about depriving yourself. It's more about, like we were saying, making choices that line up with the life you really want. But Your Money or Your Life doesn't just talk about theory, right? It gives you steps you can actually take.
Exactly. One of the most practical and potentially life-changing exercises in the book is this idea of keeping a detailed spending log. Have you ever tried that?
I have, and let me tell you, it was a real eye-opener.
Yeah, but we'll dig into that more in just a minute. First, let's take a quick break. So we were talking about your money or your life and this idea of really taking a look at our spending. And one of the tools they talk about is this detailed spending log.
Right.
And I'll admit, when I first heard that, I thought, really write down like every cup of coffee.
Yeah.
But I decided to try it, and I was really surprised. Like, it's amazing how those little expenses add up, huh?
Yeah, it's incredible. What you find out, most people, they have these financial leaks they don't even know about. It's like, imagine your income is this bucket of water.
Okay.
And all these little holes, right? Those coffees, those magazine subscriptions, those impulse buys.
Yeah.
They might seem small on their own, but all together, they can really drain that bucket.
The financial equivalent of death by 1,000 cuts. Exactly.
And speaking of things that drain our resources, the book also goes into debt.
Right, right. Debt can be really tough, financially and emotionally.
Yeah.
Robin and Dominguez, their argument is that being in debt, it keeps you stuck. Like you can't leave a job you don't even like because you got to make those monthly payments.
Right.
And it takes away your freedom, the freedom to go after what you really want, to live life on your own terms.
They paint a pretty compelling picture of how freeing it can be to not have that weight.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why they say, get rid of debt as fast as you can. It's about taking back control of your money and your life. Like a countercultural movement almost, right?
Yeah.
I think people want something different now. They want things to be simpler,
Mm.
more intentional.
Mm.
Like they're realizing that happiness, real happiness, it doesn't come from all the stuff, but from living a life that's, true to your values.
It's about those experiences, relationships, personal growth, not just the stuff.
Exactly.
And that actually connects back to what we were talking about before with your work and your passions, right? Because if you're spending all this time at a job you hate, it's going to be a lot harder to have that kind of wealth that they're talking about.
That's true.
But how do you actually find that work? Especially if you've been doing something for a long time, it's a little scary.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. That's where the self-reflection comes in, really thinking about it. The book, it talks about figuring out your values, your passions, your skills.
Mm.
What are you good at? What gets you up in the morning? What kind of impact do you want to make? These are big questions, but they're important ones if you want work that means something.
It's about making that connection, your skills, what you love and what you do.
Yeah, and sometimes that means taking a chance, trying something completely new.
Right, like a leap of faith.
Yeah. It might mean stepping outside that comfort zone, learning new stuff, or even starting your own thing, your own business.
Mm.
But the reward, that freedom, that feeling that you're doing what you're meant to, you can't put a price on that.
Like you said, finding that sweet spot where it's not just a job, it's an extension of who you are. And once you've got that, then you can really put that energy into things that matter.
That's right.
And, while the book offers this, I don't know what you'd call it, like this really big picture view of money and life, it does actually give some more traditional financial advice, like investing.
Right, right. They talk about building a good foundation with index funds, low risk, low cost.
Yeah, a classic strategy.
Yeah.
Although it is worth pointing out that things have changed a bit since the book came out.
Oh, definitely.
Like there are so many more investment opportunities now, crypto, real estate. And those index funds are still great, but it's good to at least know what's out there now.
Absolutely. Do your research, understand the risks, and choose things that work with your goals.
And that's really what your money or your life is all about, isn't it? Taking control of your financial education.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You don't have to be an expert, but you should know what's going on.
Exactly.
Being involved in your own finances, don't just hand it over to someone else.
Right.
Okay, but before we wrap up, I wanted to address something. Some people, they say that the books focus on being frugal, it's too much, it's not realistic today.
Okay. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's really important to remember the book isn't about depriving yourself. It's about making your spending match your values.
Yeah.
It's about being mindful. Where's your money going? Is it going to things that make you happy? Or is it just fueling this, mindless spending spree?
Right, like we talked about before.
Say.
It's about knowing what's enough for you, which could be totally different from your neighbor or from what everyone else is doing.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance where you can enjoy today, but also work towards your goals for the future.
I think that's a great way to put it.
So it's not never buy a latte again. It's, is this latte worth it to me?
Exactly. It's all about making choices that feel right for you, choices that make sense for you. And it all comes back to that idea of money as life energy. When you really get that, it can change how you see money and how you make decisions.
Yeah, it's not just about the numbers anymore. It's
Right.
about making sure you're getting a good return on your life energy.
I like that.
Speaking of returns, let's talk a little bit more about financial independence and the crossover point.
Okay.
It might seem impossible for some people, but the book gives you ways to actually make it happen.
For sure.
It starts with your mindset.
Yeah.
Shifting from I don't have enough to I have plenty, not by getting more, just by, being grateful for what you have.
Being present.
Yeah, and making choices that match up with what you believe in.
Absolutely.
It's about taking the reins of your finances so they work for you, not against you.
Love that.
That's a powerful thought, and we're going to explore in more detail when we dive into the book's specific strategies for achieving financial independence. So we were talking about how your money or your life encourages us to see money as this life energy.
Right.
And now you might be thinking, okay, that's great, but like, what can I do? How can I actually have that financial freedom and, live more fulfilling life?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? Well, the good news is the book gives us a roadmap, a place to start. And it all begins with, like we were saying before, awareness. Really seeing where your money's going, that spending log we talked about. It's not about, oh no, I can't buy anything. It's more about, am I spending my energy on things that really matter to me?
It's about noticing those little things, those little expenses that you might not even realize are draining your resources.
Exactly. It's about making choices that line up with the life you want to live, not what you think you should be doing.
It's about those experiences, those relationships, focusing on personal growth instead of just more stuff.
Yeah, and this ties back to what we were talking about before with work, aligning your career with your values.
Right, having a job that, I don't know, makes you excited to get up in the morning. That's
Yeah.
the dream.
That's the kind of freedom this book is all about.
But it doesn't mean you have to quit your job tomorrow and, run off and join the circus, right?
Not necessarily. It's more about taking those small steps, those consistent steps, towards creating that life that you want. Like maybe starting a side hustle that you're passionate about, or talking to your boss about maybe doing something different at your current job.
Right. Taking charge of your career and making it work for you. Now, let's get back to the financial side of things. So, you've got a handle on your spending, you're doing work that you actually enjoy. How do you reach that crossover point where you don't have to work anymore if you don't want to?
That's where investing comes in. Your money or your life, they talk about putting your money to work for you so you can have that passive income, that freedom.
Right. So, you don't have to work so hard for your money. And we mentioned earlier, the book talks a lot about index funds, which are great. But the important thing is to do your research. There are so many ways to invest now, and you have to find what makes sense for you.
Absolutely. You have to be informed, take control of your financial future. And financial independence doesn't always mean retiring early, living on a beach somewhere. It's just having options, having the freedom to do what you want, what makes you happy.
Right, like you said before, it's about living a life with purpose. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some key things you hope our listeners take away from this?
Well, I think the most important thing is that idea of money as life energy. Think about it. Every time you spend money, what am I trading my time and energy for?
It's about being present, being intentional with your choices.
Exactly. And I would say take that first step. Start tracking your spending, even if it's just for a little bit. You might be surprised what you learn about yourself.
Knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. And lastly, remember, financial independence, it's not some far-off dream. It's achievable for anyone who's willing to put in the effort, make smart choices, and live a life that's true to themselves.
A life where money works for you, not the other way around. And to our listeners, if this has piqued your interest, definitely check out the book, Your Money or Your Life. It's a classic for a reason. It might just change how you see things.
And even if you've read it before, life changes, our perspectives change, it's always worth revisiting.
It's a book you can come back to again and again. Well, thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into your money or your life. We hope you found it insightful, and we hope it encourages you to, think a little differently about your relationship with money. Until next time, keep exploring and keep living with intention.